Good morning, sixth graders. This lesson is for April the 9th, and we are going to start a new period in Japan. But first of all, I want to give a shout out to Amanda and Rikaya today. So if you heard your name, go ahead and let me know so I know that you are watching the video. But before we begin, let me ask you a review question. All right, and also I wanted to remind you that today's pages are page 284 and 285. That's 284 and 285. Once again, pay attention to what I tell you on the videos and not the lesson plans. All right, so how did the Yamato retain their power as the ruling clan in Japan? They claimed a relationship to Jimmu Tenno no, who gained loyalty after the clans, and they continued to claim a relationship with him in order to remain the only ruling class for years. For years. All right, so today we're going to talk about the Heian period. The Heian period is another period that kind of like brings Japan out from not knowing things. They're actually going to separate from the Chinese influence. Remember I said at first the Yamato people sent ambassadors to China to learn all they could to help their country, and so they're going to start pulling away from the Chinese way of life and develop their own system in their own country. So that's what we're here today. So if you haven't read this section, pause it right now and go ahead and read the 2 pages, and then we'll go ahead and review and ask questions, and we'll discuss this. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you have read that and you did what you're supposed to. So the Heian period, so let me ask you a question. Once the capital of Japanese government was moved to Heian-kaiō, because it was at Nara, what happened? What period in Japan's history followed? Well, since we're talking about the Heian period, that would be the period that followed during this time. Today, Heian-kaiō was the capital, and today the capital, or today Heian is the city of Kyoto, Japan, all right? So look at, it says, let's look at what the Heian period was like. I'm going to go ahead and read this. Hopefully you read it too, but we're going to, let me see, I just want to make sure. Okay, so it says that it was a time of peace and security. That was what it was like. Japan began to develop a culture independent of the Chinese during this time. Remember, I already just said that to you. So a time of peace. Let's see. Who made up of the imperial court? So if you read Life at Court, were the nobles who followed the emperor in the Heian-kaiō got to be in part of this imperial court. So they got to be a part, I don't know if you think of a castle or something, and they have, before you can go into the castle, they have this court where, if you've ever watched all those movies, The Knight's Court or something, and you see all these nobles walking around, these are the people that could be there, okay? And so the people that could be in the imperial court were made up of nobles who followed Heian-kaiō, okay? Or the emperor of Heian-kaiō, not Heian-kaiō is not a person, who followed the emperor of it, okay? And the purpose of the court was to serve and advise the emperor, giving them ideas of what to do and how to help these countries. Hopefully you're looking at a picture. So this is kind of what the court would kind of look like. People hanging out, all the elite people, the people that were the in at this time. All right. Then they emphasize etiquette. Today we have etiquette, no burping at the table or not elbows on the table, sneezing or coughing into the crook of your elbow. Those are etiquettes, things that are it's like politeness. And etiquette could be how you sit at the table, or being grateful for the food you eat, not slurping your food or eating with your mouth open, things like that. So, sorry, my throat is, I just did Facebook Live, and then as soon as I was done with that, I taught my 7th grade history class, and now I'm teaching yours, and so now my voice is going crazy. Let's see, so that was one thing of etiquette, and if you didn't follow it, what happened? If you did not follow it, you were not welcome at court, right? What impact did the nobles' love of beauty, eloquence, and support the arts have on the court of Japan? Well, it became the center of learning and the center of culture. Japan has a very respectful culture. I know that they respect their elders. They bow, when they're talking to people. It's a politeness that they have. The Heian period was the golden age of the arts in ancient Japan. And so I encourage you, if we were at school, I would have the difference between Chinese art and Japanese art. Go ahead and Google that and look at the difference between their types of art. A lot of similarities, but then a lot of differences too, okay? So look at the caption of the picture there. It says the aristocracies of the Heian court sought refinement in behavior, art, and literature. Okay, so look at their appearances. What do you notice about their appearances? Look at them. I know I can't really ask you to tell me, but you can talk out loud or you can say it. One of the things was they wore elaborate outfits. See all their nice little robes. The girls had fans. A lot of those fans were decorated really pretty. Both men and women wore makeup. The white makeup, because they thought, you had the white face, it would be beautiful. And they also blackened their teeth because they thought white teeth was ugly. So they would whiten their face but blacken their teeth. And that's kind of hard to believe. And they carried fans, all right? So it says there was an image there, and let's see. So the fans actually, oops, there goes my book. The fans were actually used as a noble status rather than simply for cooling. Like nowadays, if you see someone bring a fan, it's because they're hot. That wasn't the case. It was as far as to show how important they were. They were originally, only the emperor was allowed to use a fan, but over time it was used by all the aristocrats, okay? And it remained a part of the court attire throughout the 19th century. So that wasn't actually in your notes, but something different. Now the language, remember, we adapted the language of the Chinese. The difference was that Japan didn't have a written language. So we copied a lot of the Chinese, but over time they started changing it. So let's see. How did the language change during the Heian period? Well, Chinese became the official language of the imperial court. So everybody in Japan spoke Chinese, the rich people, or the people who were, you know, the nobles at that time. And then what was Japan's national language? All the other people spoke Japanese. So you have the leaders speaking Chinese and the people speaking Japanese. Okay? What made it possible to write down the Japanese language? Okay, remember their punctuation and the meaning of, they use characters. So like we use letters, and if you ever looked at the Chinese writing, or I don't know what I'm looking at, I'm supposed to be looking at the camera. If you've ever looked at the Chinese writing or the Japanese line, it's just more like characters. Be hard to learn, I think. More symbols than what we have. And they began to use only phonetic symbols in their writing system. They developed 2 types of characters by simplifying some Chinese characters and abbreviating others. So even though, and I'm wondering if people who, I wouldn't know it, I have to talk to my my stepmom, the lady that's married to my dad. She's from China, so I'll have to ask her if a lot of Chinese people can speak Japanese, or if it's easier to learn Japanese. I'll ask her that, and I'll let you know. It's an interesting question. Probably not anymore, because it's been centuries since this time, but well, you know, not centuries, but it's been a long time. Okay, and so let's see here. I wanted to show you, where'd it go? Okay, I lost my place. There was one they wanted to show you, but look at it says, okay, look at the pictures. Located in Ujai, Japan, this monument shows Murasaki, the author of the tales of the Genji, and then she was the first modern, or the first person to write a novel that was called The Tale of the Genji. And so I was going to say her name you would have to remember during a test, but you wouldn't have to do that. Oh, I know. Okay, so here we have, how did the emperor entertain the imperial army? Well, a lot of these people did, you know, when you're talking about the Knights of the Round Table or the medieval times, a lot of times they had banquets, and they invited these people that hung around the imperial court to banquets, and they would, you know, feed them. And who doesn't like food? I mean, I love food. I think I've been eating so much. Miss Young is going to be like a roly-poly by the time you see her again. And then who sang the Kumi song at the banquet? The common soldiers. So that was something. And who occupies this song? Rhythms beaten out by hands. I'm just kidding. That's not what they did. But they would do these rhythms with their hands. How did Maichai no Omi, no Makoto, and his soldiers trick the enemy? He invited the enemy to a banquet. The soldiers hid into a pit. He sang a song which meant the signal for the soldiers to attack the enemy. Was this plan successful? Yes. And then during a modern performance, why might singers laugh out loud at the end of a song? It could be that the imperial army laughed in delight after Maichai sang the song, or laughing signifies the success of the trick on the enemy. It's funny to learn about different cultures and why they do what they do. I know that in Japan, after a meal, to show politeness and that you enjoy it, you burp. Well, you know, do that. If you did that at the dinner table, Your parents would probably say, that's disgusting, don't do that. I know that's how it would be at my house. And then in what languages did the nobles write their literature? They wrote it in Chinese, and the women wrote it in Japanese. The men wrote it in Chinese, sorry. The women wrote it in Japanese. Who was the greatest writers in early Japan? Was Lady Murasaki, Shai Kaibu, and like I said, she already wrote that book, The Tale of the Ganji. And then, what form of literature did she write? A novel. Okay. What role did poetry play? It was an important part, and a person had to write poetry to be accepted into high-end society. I know that a lot of times you're going to write poetry in English and you do the haiku, which was very important. It was a type of Japanese poetry. There are 17 symbols in a verse, and it hints at the season in which the poem takes place. So even back then, children were having to write poems in literature class or English class, and they probably complained as much as we do. I know I hated writing poetry. I was not good at it, and I had to do all the limericks, and I had to do the kayus and haikus, kayos. I don't know why I say that. Haikus, and I was thinking of Kyoto, but it's just something. So it's very interesting the way they learn to live. We'll continue discussing this. Now remember, tomorrow, the 10th, you won't have a class, so you don't have to have a video to watch, nor do you have a video on Monday to watch because of Easter break. So I hope you have a great Easter. I hope you're able to do something, get outside, do something that's going to be fun for you and your family. Remember why we celebrate Easter, Resurrection Sunday. It's not about the bunny, but eat all your candy, and I wish I could see you guys. I love you, and I hope that you are making good choices.